Hello and welcome back to another Exos Hero video, and today we'll be doing something yet again a little bit different. And today we're gonna look at the also frustrating Yupir Labyrinth. I'm sure a lot of you are trying to, do as much as you possibly can, try to get those rewards and Xyz, but yeah, like I for one know that this is not so great of an upgrade since the last update. So today we're gonna focus specifically on Abyssal path, and we're gonna look at stage 3, 4, and 5. And we're gonna start with stage 3 here. So let's take a look at the team real quick. Yeah, as we can see here, pretty straightforward team. This stage is all about revive, and getting the right reviver on your team and getting the right setup is very, very important. And with that being said, let's jump straight into the fight here. So the first couple of stages, we're just gonna skip them right over. There's not really a lot to it. The only thing I would say is you want to save up the mana as much as possible. And as you can see here, immediately as you get into the boss stage, what happens is the rest of your team dies with the exception of the one hero who has the lowest maximum HP. So essentially your weakest hero, and you want that hero to be your reviver. And in this case, what I have here is Sibel. And what I did is I took a 1-star level 1 Sibel and leveled her up to 45, I think, and with very minimum gear just to bring her in, so that she is just a hair lower on HP than my damage dealer Diva here. And after a couple of turns, she is able to revive the rest of the team back up. And it's very important to make sure that you do level your reviver to a certain level so that they don't die immediately to the boss's attack, right? So you don't want them to die right away, but you definitely want to make sure that they have the lowest HP. And as the fight continues, as we can see here, the HP of our entire team is really, really low. And that's why we have FC Iris here. So what FC Iris does for us is essentially using her A1 repetitively and allowing the rest of the team, especially our two healers, to start healing up the rest of the team. Because, man, like right now, if anyone attacks or even just like breathe on, one of our heroes, for example, Shufraken here, he's just gonna go down. So we definitely need that mana generation. But unfortunately, Iris went down. But that's okay because we do have Sibel, who will just use her here and bring back Iris. Karain serves a similar purpose, but her heal is a little bit better at a higher mana cost. So I think she will not be able to use her. She was not able to use her heal or revive just yet. We should have that coming up pretty soon. And while we're at it, I'm sure you guys have already noticed that we do have FC Shufraken on this team as well. And some of you might be questioning why we have him, especially given that, he is Dark Element. And the boss, if you guys haven't noticed already, is immune to all the damages with the exception of machine type damage, which is why we have Diva as our damage dealer here. So you might be questioning why we have Shufraken on the team. And that is, Shufraken actually serves a pretty vital role in this entire lineup, because what he brings is the Breath of Mana passive, which grants the front line 1 permanent mana. And that is huge for Iris, right? This allows Iris to constantly use her A1 and start generating mana for the rest of the team. So without that 1 additional mana Shufraken brings, Iris at the beginning of the fight could very well have no mana, right? Like after she gets revived, she has 0 mana and very low on HP. So this is just a sure way of guaranteed 1 mana for FC Iris, so that she can then start enabling the rest of your team. But once we get through the initial stage, the focus of the rest of the fight is always going to be just focusing on using FC Iris A1 to start generating mana for the rest of the team and let your healer start to heal everyone up. And slowly but surely, D.Va, our only damage dealer here, will start chipping down on the HP of the boss. A couple of things to point out as we continue to watch the fight go on is, one, because of the fact that the boss is immune to all the other type of damages, so with the exception of machine type damage, that means healers who requires to land a hit on the boss in order to heal will not be able to proc their skills. For example, like here we have Sibel, and Sibel's A1 is 0 mana and does AoE damage and provides a small amount of heal. That skill will never go off on this specific stage because the boss is immune, so that attack itself will never land. So just something to keep in mind. If you do bring someone, I'm not sure, but I think Talia is similar. Both of her heals also comes with an attack, and Talia is nature type, so she won't work either. So just something to keep in mind as you build your team. And for those of you who are concerned about, okay, like I don't have these heroes, at the end of this, we'll definitely go back and take a look at who we can potentially replace, because this is by no means the only setup. For some of your more advanced players, for sure, you can bring someone, with fated gear, and especially if you have darkness gear, and you can get those life steals off. You can essentially take D.Va and pretty much, solo this level without a reviver. So that's an alternative, but we're trying to do this for the more beginner friendly type of thing. So let's see. Yeah, so continuously we're just continue to spam our FC Iris A1, trying to get everyone enough mana so that they can use their skills and they can use their heals. And if we look at our HP right now, at this stage, we're pretty much safe. One thing good about this stage, and one thing that I cannot say for the next two stages, is the fact that the boss doesn't do a lot of damage, and that's a good thing. Yeah, so as the fight continues to go on, you can see that there really isn't too much going on after the initial setup. So it's all about getting the right hero and the right type of combination. Once you get past the first, I would say maybe three rounds, you're pretty much in the clear as we are right now. And frankly, like even now, if one of our hero goes down, like we don't have to worry about that. We have enough mana on both of our healers to bring up anyone that might drop. And yeah, obviously FC Shufraken is not the only option here, right? If we think about it, for the breadth of mana, there are actually a few heroes that I can think of that provides that. So if you do have Garth, whether it's FC Garth or just regular Garth, that can definitely be an alternative. And interestingly, Bathory is also another alternative since she has Breath of Mana as well, even though she is a backline hero. So there are a couple of additional options that you can replace Shufraken with. And a little bit later we'll touch on and kind of even more alternative way of replacing Shufraken. But here we go. Finish up with the final hit passive from D.Va. Yeah, so once you get it set up, it's pretty straightforward, but the setup definitely takes a little bit of time. So if you guys don't have a weak reviver on your lineup, just go summon some heroes. Make sure you save one of them, especially if you come across Sibel. Use her. I think she will do you a lot of good. But now let's take a look at what are some of the alternatives we can potentially have. Right, so if we're looking at our lineup here, obviously FC Iris is kind of a very important character to have. I think if you don't have the Fate Core version, the base Iris could also serve a similar role. Obviously, just not to the same extent. She's going to be a little bit slow as her A1 only generates 1 mana in the base case. If you have FC Shufraken, Garth, Battery, that could work. As we are showing it here, if you don't have Garth or Shufraken, you can put in Battery. She has a breadth of mana. Just throw her into the back row and that'll do the similar job for you as well. Right, so we're seeing here part of her passive right there, breadth of mana. Front row ally permanently gain 1 mana, so very useful as it enables the A1 of FC Iris. And obviously, it's very important to bring your dual reviver here. Sibel is the primary option in our opinion, especially because her A1 only costs 3 mana, which is a little bit lower versus Karain, which will cost 5. So an alternative to Sibel, if you don't have her, which you should, but I can understand if you don't, then Ledger is a good option. As we can see here, her A1 revives all dead allies, just like Sibel's A2, but also only costs 3 mana, so that's really good. You really want to have the lower mana because just able to get a revive a little bit faster. And now let's switch it up a little bit. And if we're looking at a certain lineup, right, when you're thinking about, okay, we need to enable FC Iris, we need to enable our reviver, and I don't have those frontline mana generating characters to enable them, an alternative option is to put them in the back row. And then you can throw in someone like we're showing Rachel here. Rachel has the flow of mana passive, so does I believe Jinai as well. So you can put them in the back row and then put your FC Iris in the back row with them. The issue with that is obviously you suffer a little bit, I think 10% combat power penalty, but that's not really an issue here. Like I said, the boss is not a heavy damage boss. You'll be able to survive, you just need to be able to use your skills. So one recommendation that we can make is, throw your mana generating character in the back row, throw your FC Iris with him or her, and then put one of your other healer, preferably the lower, the primary reviver, so Sibel or Ledger, along with them in the back row. So they will start the fight in the boss stage with 1 mana, and they just need to generate 2 in order to get to 3 mana and use their revive. But yeah, so that's pretty much how we have this stage set up. As you can see here, this is kind of an alternative way you can use it. Obviously, as for your damage dealer, you definitely need to bring a machine type damage dealer, so make sure you have that. Diva would be a great choice because she does a lot of single target damage. As we can see here, Colin, he's more of an AoE damage dealer, so maybe not as good, but you can definitely bring him. Otherwise, Jin and Baraka are very good choices, especially Baraka. Baraka functions as a mana battery himself, so he would work really well as well. And if you have Baraka, you might even be able to not use Iris there. So for those of you who do have him, try that out. But otherwise, let's move on to stage 4 or path 4. And this is going to be exponentially more straightforward than path 3. The boss on this stage is really all about kind of doing AoE damage. I believe it is Sabrina. And when it comes to Sabrina, obviously as part of the design, she's going to do a lot of damage, but not so much in that as long as you have a good team, you should be able to withstand the AoE damage. So all you need to do is to make sure to bring one AoE healer. So the choice that we're going with right now is Anastasia, but we'll talk about the alternatives a little bit. And lastly, one other thing to point out is the boss is also immune to physical damage. So as you can see here, our entire lineup is all just magical damage. So make sure you don't bring anyone who does physical damage, such as Jane, Baraka, Rachel, or Rira, things like that. So let's try to breeze through the first couple of stages really quickly here and get to the boss stage as fast as you can. There's really not a lot to it. All you have to do is maybe not use your skills as much. Try to stay with your low mana cost A1 or just auto attack if possible, so that when you get to the boss stage you have as much mana as possible and you can use your hard hitting skills there, preferably with burst. As we can see here, we're just trying to clean up the mob a little bit with the A1 of D.Va here. One thing I like about it is her A1 definitely works pretty well. In itself, it has a reset, so whenever you hit someone at a low HP, because it's AoE, it also softens up the other targets, right? So if you can get one reset off and the other targets gets a little bit low, you can then use that skill again and take another person out, and potentially in the process soften up the third target, and then you can take that person out again. So it's actually pretty cool. Here we go. Very straightforward, the first two stages, and now let's get to the boss stage here. As we mentioned, there really doesn't require a lot of setup. There's no mechanics where it kills off the your entire team right away. So all you want to do here is to generate mana, which is why we have FC Iris, so this fight doesn't last 20 minutes. And then just try to stay healthy with your AoE healer. So as you can see here, we're using FC Iris' A1 similar to how we did on Pass 3. And that just allows our damage dealer to put out the damage they need. And as well as, making sure that we have enough mana on Anastasia so that she can, use her high impact AoE heal whenever we need to. So just trying to use all our hard hitting skills right here, and let's heal up because Iris is a little bit low. And on the next turn Sabrina will attack, and you see she definitely packs a punch, but not enough to just wipe your team. And here he comes, even after the blocks still, right, like more than half HP across 4 of our characters. So definitely need to be careful here. Definitely need to have good gear if you guys want to do this stage. Not amazing gear. A lot of our heroes, as you can see here, some of them has faded gear, others don't. But D.Va, she's able to survive with just essentially legendary gear. So is I think Iris as well. So just make sure you have legendary gear, and I think you guys should be okay. And it's pretty much just rinse and repeat, right? Do damage, generate mana through Iris, heal up through Anastasia or whoever, and then do more damage. And surely, you just start chipping down on the HP bar a little by little. And this is definitely a prelude to what's to come, because on the next stage, we'll be facing, I think, Maggie as the final boss, and she is essentially, Sabrina on steroid. She is going to do a tremendous amount of damage, and it's by far the most frustrating of the 3 paths we're seeing here. So the next stage will require a little bit of RNG, unless you have amazing gear, but we'll talk more about that when we get there. So this is definitely a little bit slow, but as we'll see here, we're taking down the boss by, I think 70% by now, so we're coming up. Still taking a lot of damage, so definitely need to be constantly healing ourselves up, right? As we can see, the whole team is under 50% HP, so there's definitely no way that you can take 2 AoE from the boss without healing up. So make sure whenever you have, an incoming spell, before that you want to heal up your team. So always be on high alert when it comes to the mana amount of your AoE healer. I never want Anastasia to drop below 4 mana, as that will not allow her to use her A1. Similar goes if you do bring Kaya, make sure you have 5 mana, because I think her A3, which is the higher impact one. I mean her A2, A3. Yeah, her A2 costs 5 mana. But there we go. Stage cleared. Pretty straightforward. Takes a little bit of time, but you guys will get through it. I'm sure of it. And before we move on, let's take a quick look at some of the alternative heroes that we can bring in places of the hero that we're seeing here. So obviously, I think as for your damage dealer, there are a lot of choices here. As long as you bring people who are doing magical damage, you'll be fine. And if we're looking at, see what options we have here to potentially substitute in. Yep, so definitely Valentina could be an option. Maggie is also a pretty good option as well as Bernadette here. So definitely a lot of choices. You can definitely use Kaya in place of Anastasia. Both of her skills are AoE healing. You can also bring Talia. But just remember, Talia, you do run a risk because both of her skills requires you to attack. So if you miss it, then you don't get a heal. So be aware of that. I think Iris is definitely important to bring. But if you don't have her Fate Core version, just always bring the base version because that will still work as well. You just need to be a little bit more careful on how you use your mana. But otherwise, this is a pretty straightforward setup. There's a lot of choices when it comes to back row. Bathory definitely helps in the way that she brings the breath of mana option. But if you don't have Bathory, what you can do is, if you have characters such as what we're showing here with Shell, because her A1 essentially transfers 1 mana from her to a target. So you can repetitively using that, transferring 1 mana to, who do we have here? FC Iris, and let Iris bring up the mana count for the rest of your team. So this can be an alternative. Or if you have another hero, I think there are a few other heroes that do mana transfer, so you can always replace Bathory with that. But with that being said, let's move on to stage 5 then. So, stage 5 is definitely super frustrating. So let's get right into the fight here, and we'll talk a little bit more about it as we continue to watch the fight go on. So the first 2 stages, obviously, as just like every other fight, it's not really all that important. But I would say the one thing that we want to make sure we do is the boss requires us to really burst her down because she does way too much damage, and there's no way you can survive more than a couple of attacks. So what you want to do during stage 1 and 2 is save up mana. So what we're seeing here, right, like we're just using our auto attacks, right? Everyone's coming in just with your auto attacks just to bring their mana reserve up ever so slightly, right? We're trying to save as much as we can. Right? So as we get to stage 2, we're doing the same thing, auto attack, just try to take them out. Obviously, if you do have a slightly weaker team, there might be places where you might want to use one of your skill, especially if you have an AoE skill that can help you take out 1 or 2 heroes, then use that. So just be aware of that. You don't have to use just auto attack all the time, but do it with the idea of saving mana in mind. That's what we're seeing here. Just trying to doing auto attack, just try to save mana a little bit and making sure that but at the same time, right, like making sure we're not dropping on our HP too much. Definitely do not bring a healer with you. Maybe if you have an amazing Anastasia, maybe, but otherwise, do not bring a healer. And once we get to the boss stage, it's all about bursting her down, right? It's straightforward. There's nothing to it. So obviously, you're gonna be hoping for critical hits because that will be crucial. What we're showing you here is our, I would say, 7th or 8th run. Definitely failed the first 8 times. We came really close on a number of occasions. It's just a matter of getting one crit or not, and we just didn't get them. As we can see here, we're getting a little bit lucky on some of these skills. FC Iris, same thing as all the previous stages, just give me everyone mana so they can spam their skills. Here comes Annie, doing a little bit of damage. Another crit, so we definitely got lucky on this stage. But here comes this damage, right? Like, the lucky thing is we did dodge on the multiple occasions, but Iris essentially got 0 to 100% right there, so yeah, not great. But we've saved up enough mana, so now we just need to really take her out as soon as we can. Here comes Diva, and FC Diva does great damage there because her passive allows her to double her critical damage. So we saw her just quit right there, and that was a game changer. Had we not had that, this fight would not have been possible. So we come in with Rachel there, didn't do crit, but that's okay. And is this it, or not quite? We just need to finish her up. Here comes another, and we definitely got pretty lucky here. A couple of our heroes went down, but luckily our main damage dealer are still up. Here goes Jin, and I'll touch on Jin just a little bit because I think we actually made a little bit of a mistake bringing him in, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But whew, I was so happy when we finished this because I was getting so frustrated just not getting the luck. I needed Diva to crit more often. I ended up taking someone else's Fated Gear off and put it on her just so she gets a little bit higher critical chance there, and it definitely paid dividend. So if we look at a team here, as I mentioned earlier, one thing I made a mistake on is to bring Jane in, and I'll touch on that because the key pairing that we're seeing here is, in my opinion, Diva as well as Annie. So what Diva does, as you can see here, Crimson Strike right there. If you missed it, here, Crimson Strike. And what it does is it allows you to increase your critical damage by double. So that's great. So if she crits, she's going to do significant amount of damage and really put you in a great position to kind of clear this stage. You know, if she gets a couple of crits off, I think you're guaranteed to win. We only got one and we still got through, so that was pretty good. And Annie, the reason why we brought Annie is her Burning Soul passive allows you to get 300% increase to critical hit to the fastest attack speed ally. Not the fattest attack speed ally, but yeah, so in most cases, Diva's pretty quick and she's gonna be the one who gets the Burning Souls. But if you guys notice in the fight, we had Burning Souls passive or buff on Jane, and that's because Jane is just, he is like the fastest character in the game. I think alongside of Rira, FC Rira would be a little bit faster. So Jane, the fact that we brought him kind of took that away from Diva, and I think might have actually lowered our chances of winning. So if I were you guys, I would not bring Jane, but if you have Diva, definitely go for it. Hopefully that helped you guys. As you can see here, you know, the stage 3, it's really not about strategy. So when it comes to, you know, recommending additional heroes, we really don't have a lot of recommendations here. Just bring your best single target burst DPS with you and hoping that you will get some sort of crit. Definitely have Iris in your team as she really provides that crucial mana generation so you can constantly use your skills, and it's really just a race against the clock. But with that being said, hopefully this helps. I know the new Yupir Labyrinth is definitely really frustrating, but at the same time, you know, it's fun to exploit the strategy a little bit. So hopefully this helps. And if you guys need any help on the other stages, just let us know. We'll work on the guides for the other areas as well. But with that being said, hopefully this helped. And if you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe. Otherwise, we'll see you in the next episode. Bye bye.